Everyone, welcome. If you're joining us live, hi, I can't wait to interact with you. And if you're watching us later, thanks so much for joining in. I'm Andrea Allen. I'm the co-founder of Onyx Coffee Lab. I'm the 2020 US Barista Champion and the 2021 second place World Barista Champion. That's such a mouthful. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here today. So this particular program is always brought to you by Breville, Crate and Barrel, and of course, Onyx Coffee Lab. So on this series, we explore coffee in all different forms and fashions. And kind of the thought process is that coffee is an ingredient. Coffee, of course, is incredible on its own as like a black brewed beverage. I'm also drinking a little bit of their espresso from Onyx right now, which is really great. And so that's kind of how a lot of us think about coffee, is either in that kind of like more bare bones, pure form, or as a latte, or as a mocha, or something just super standard that coffee culture has taught us is like a great way to drink coffee. And let's just be honest, those are all great ways to drink coffee. And most of us that are into coffee probably have coffee in multiple different formats almost every week. However, I think what's something that is super fun is to, when you think about coffee as a building block for a recipe or as also as an ingredient, it can really open the door into what kinds of drinks you can make, what kinds of colors you can experience, flavors, aromatic experiences, all of those kinds of things, visual experiences. And those are really the things that put together and create our expectations around what is a great beverage. So if you think about any of like the super incredible like beverage or even just hospitality experiences that you have had, it usually probably contains all of those elements where all of the things that you were looking for were met. So whether it was like a kind, warm smile from someone that was serving you, the way something felt in your hand, the way it looked, just the way it made you feel, all of those things contribute to having a super great experience. And now that we're rolling into what feels like the hottest summer of all time, a lot of us are kind of like, how can I continue to enjoy coffee, but not hot coffee? There's like kind of this thought process that drinking hot beverages when it is hot actually makes things like cooler and makes you feel like you're less hot. I sometimes like kind of feel like I ascribe to that, but then also it's just so great on a hot day to have like something super refreshing, really flavorful, and just really something super enjoyable to drink. So we're going to be talking through two different beverages today, the Thai iced coffee and the Rose Tea Shake. So if you saw the Rose Tea Shake, you're probably like, how does that have anything to do with coffee? And it actually doesn't, but it's really great. Tea is also a super fun thing to work with. And that particular recipe is actually like really super flexible and could contain coffee or all kinds of things that we might want to put in it. So I'm not going to be making any espresso today, but I thought I'd go ahead and start us off with some espresso. And even if we like get through these drinks in any amount of time, I thought I might make some espresso all together with us, which would be super fun. Okay, so let's start by talking about the Thai iced coffee. So this particular drink has nitro coffee as its base. I chose that just because nitro has this really incredible small fizz to it that I think makes this drink kind of like go to the next level with its like sparkle and just like the way, the effervescent feel that it creates in your mouth. If you don't have access to nitrogenated coffee, which is going to be most people at home, although you can buy it at a grocery store, like a can of it, something that someone else has produced. And sometimes those kinds of drinks are super fun. But if you're like, I don't have access to nitro coffee, like that's a super bummer. How can I make this drink? The answer is you can do it with brewed coffee that is just like chilled down. And I say chilled, like you could just let it come to room temperature. You also could use like espresso with water. So it would be like an Americano, but again, cooled down. So you could make a couple shots of espresso, put some cold water with it, just kind of let it fully chill all the way, and that would work. Or you could do something like have a concentrated cold brew coffee that you use with the cold brew and with a little bit of water, and that would work as well. Could I get a glass measuring cup? Yeah, so any of those things will work for this drink. I think using nitro coffee just has like really takes the drink to the next level. So let's talk through some of the other ingredients, because these particular ingredients are going to give this drink a little bit of push towards having kind of like an Asia style flavor profile to it. Thank you. I'd also just love to add that while we're talking along here, if you have any questions, just put them down in the chat and we'll put them up for me to check out. And I'd love to kind of answer them in real time. Yeah. Okay, so let's just jump straight into making this drink. This drink is super straightforward. I love how easy the recipe is, how straightforward the ingredients are. And this drink also particularly lends itself to all kinds of different modifications. So I'm going to make it the way that I have on the recipe here, and we'll kind of talk through some of those differences as we go along. So what I've done here is I've just put some nitro in this little decanter so I could use it. So I'm going to start with 9 ounces of nitro coffee. I'm going to do an ounce of sweetened condensed milk. So sweetened condensed milk is literally one of the greatest things of all time if you love sweet, creamy, yummy things. I know that sweetened condensed milk is like, some people are like, cool, I can have it, I love it. Other people are like, nope, get that out of here. So if you're looking for something that's an alternative to this, you can really use either any milk or dairy product that you can access that you enjoy, or you can also use a plant-based beverage of some kind. So the thing that this is going to bring to this drink is sweetness and fat. So anytime you have a recipe that contains something that has the sweetness and the fat to it, and you're wanting to like sub it out for something else, you just need to replace it with something equal parts fat and sweet that this contains. So you could do something like add a little bit of like a simple syrup sweetness into some almond or oat milk. If you wanted to use even like a nut base, like a cashew yogurt or like an oat yogurt would probably be really great as well. And you could add a little bit of sweetness into that. But really, anytime you're going through one of my recipes and you're like, oh gosh, I can't have that, or I can't find that, that happens a lot too. You can just like think through, what is this drink? What is this adding? What component is this ingredient adding to the recipe? And then you can think through how you can sub that out in terms of fat and sweetness. One of the fun things, I always like to talk about fat being a vehicle, which can sometimes come across as a really funny sort of statement. But basically, like what fat does is takes the flavors of whatever you're experiencing and it helps them travel across your palate. So basically, fat pulls everything together, and when you drink or eat something that has an element of fat in it, it basically just like really smoothly lets it travel very slowly over your tongue. So you can think about something that is heavy, for example, olive oil, or something like heavy cream, or even like butter as an example. So if you were to like interact with any one of those things on your palate, it's coating, it is heavy, it is like slowly moving, and is also lingers in your mouth. And that is such a beautiful way to put other flavors into that ingredient to then have that experience last a long time and be substantially feeling in your mouth. I think that's one of the other things that beverages can sometimes miss, is that like play of texture. So a lot of beverages, especially coffee beverages, if you're talking about like an espresso, like I'm drinking right now, it can definitely have some like heaviness to it, definitely do that sort of like slow moving across your palate. But at the end of the day, it's coffee and water. The same is true for a brewed coffee or a pour over. You can have elements of density and body in the actual coffee itself. But at the end of the day, again, it's coffee and water, which in some ways is incredibly beautiful. even a latte or a mocha, which is espresso and milk, like they still are going to only be able to achieve a certain texture because their fat content doesn't ever quite get high enough to really like move in your mouth the way that something like sweetened condensed milk, yogurt, cream, olive oil, something like that will move. So that's the fat vehicle. It gets us where we want to go. Okay, so I'm going to put just an of the sweet condensed milk in here. And you might recognize familiar separation. So the picture that we did of the drink that I made for this class, I put it into this cup without shaking it because I think it has a really great visual. For this particular drink, I'm going to shake this one up because this is how you would, I think, really interact really well with this drink to drink it. If you want to layer it in your whatever cocktail glass or glass you're using in general, go ahead and do that. And then you just like stir it up well at the end and you can have that kind of like presentation with the stir. Okay, so we've gotten our sweetened condensed milk. We're going to put in 2 dashes of cardamom bitters. So cardamom is a seed of a plant that is in the ginger family. So the cardamom bitters are like a reduction of the contents of that seed and then a bittering agent as well. So it's going to add like a real depth of complexity of a spice to the drink. And that's one of the reasons that this is called a Thai iced coffee. It is like in the spirit of a Thai iced tea. And the cardamom like brings in like kind of familiar flavors that you might experience from Southeast Asia. Okay. I'm also going to do 2 ounces of, or excuse me, 2 dashes of almond extract. I'm just actually going to do 1 because that was a lot that came out. So that's plenty right there. So the almond extract, again, it just is going to build on top of that intentional layering of different kinds of spices and flavors. That's just really going to add a fullness to this drink. And then finally, I'm just going to do a pinch of ground cinnamon. So you can see the ingredients of this drink are really ultra simple. And it's really great because this is this particular recipe can be moved in all different sorts of directions. So if you don't like cardamom or you don't like cinnamon, you can really sub out all kinds of flavors for those drinks. And you can really do kind of like whatever you want with it across the map. Okay, so now I'm basically just going to do a really simple shake of this drink. And when I'm shaking it, my goal is just to both chill it, mix it, and froth it. Just get everything poured into my shaker here. I just put like 5 pieces of ice in here. You can really put as much ice as you want, but for me, I'm just kind of wanting it to be both chilled and then for there to be enough ice in there to like break up that condensed milk and just get everything super homogenized. I love shaking things. So somehow I've like shaken so many drinks in my life and I have never crossed over the boundary of being comfortable shaking because I'm always just afraid it's going to fly out. And I actually am pretty like not grateful. So things like this happen to me and I just have to be super careful. So you're not alone. If you're out there feeling like, oh my gosh, how do I make this without making a mess? You can do it. You can totally do it. Okay. Okay, so someone's asking me a question about cardamom, that there's 2 different kinds of cardamom. There's probably all kinds of things out there that you could get that have cardamom something going on in it. I'm using cardamom bitters because it is, first of all, it comes like in a liquid form, which I think is easier to mix into a drink. And it's also going to be like, in this particular, like a bitters product is basically engineered to go into cocktails or go into, drinks of whatever kind. So for me, this both adds the cardamom flavor, but it adds a little bit of bitterness. Bitterness is like a really funny kind of thing to discuss, because I think we generally in coffee, especially in specialty coffee, we kind of associate bitterness with a negative, but really bitterness is like just one of the things that helps balance any drink, but particularly coffee. So all coffees are going to have potentials of sour, sweet, and bitter. And what creates balance is having an equal amount of all three of those. So for this particular drink, I feel like that adding a little bit of bitterness, because the nitrogenated coffee is going to be smooth and like really super simple to access and easy to drink, I think it just adds a level of complexity to the drink. But I would say if you don't have cardamom bitters, you should just go and you have cardamom in your house. Just go with that and see how it is. And if it's great, then that's great. I always say, I'm like, listen, if you make something and you think it's good, it's good. Don't worry about if it's exactly right. Okay, so I got this drink nice and shaken up. Just going to strain it out. Now, some of you may be seeing this drink and being like, yo, Andrea, aren't you always trying to make drinks that aren't brown? Because that drink is literally brown. It is exactly what you would think a coffee drink would be like. And I'm just going to say, I know, but when you taste it, you're going to love it. I think one of the other things that I always think through when I'm serving a coffee that is completely brown like this is like, how can you garnish the top to help create other kinds of like colors on the top? But also the glassware is something that you can look at to help create some distinction inside of these drinks. So this particular glass that I'm using it's a straight on cocktail glass. And so there's this kind of like funny thing that happens to me. Like anytime I go somewhere to make drinks with someone, or to make drinks that are like not with a coffee person or something like that, there's this thought of like, oh, okay, so you're going to make coffee drinks. You need to have this like either ceramic or like a double walled glass that like is impenetrable from heat. And I'm always kind of like, yes, those glasses are totally great for coffees. But I also feel like a lot of us have like some pretty fantastic cocktailware, wine glasses, martini glasses. Like a lot of us have like at least maybe a couple of these or a small set of those kinds of glasses around. And unless you're like serving like a very specific drink in this glass, it's like, how often would you use it? I know for me, like at my house, like we drink wine or we drink like something in like just that standard like low ball like cocktail glass. And so I'm always trying to take my drinks and my recipes and put them in different kinds of cocktail glasses, because I feel like it enables you to kind of like utilize things that you have around. But it also gives a really nice, elegant elevation to a drink like this that is, first of all, tastes fantastic, but also it's just, it's not like insanely beautiful in terms of its color. So here it is. It is so great. I don't know if any of y'all are making this live with me. If you are, you should like do a little like hand raise emoji in the chat so I know. That is so good. Awesome. Perfect. Love it. Okay. That's really good. All right. So that's the drink. Really, it's a great drink. And again, like if you're reading this recipe, don't get completely caught up on every single ingredient in it. All of the ingredients in it make it a great drink. But if you needed to sub something out, either because you wanted to or because you don't have the ingredients that I list specifically, just go for it. Okay, so now we're going to move to the next drink. This drink is awesome. So this is a Rose Tea Oat shake. It's kind of a mashup in terms of all of the things in it. But basically, the base of this drink is going to be an oat ice cream. And we sent out a recipe too. That's just like a roll standard, like kind of oat ice cream base recipe. And so if I was going to make this at home, I have been blessed by the ice cream gods with a Breville Smart Scoop machine. That thing is incredible. But I also like to recommend just like a super standard ice cream maker that you can pick up anywhere. Crate and Barrel has a great selection of them as well. But, you know, it's just one of those things. It's like you don't need a super crazy ice cream machine maker to make great ice cream. And I always laugh when I start talking about making ice cream because, like, let's just be really fully transparent and honest about it. I am not like an ice cream making savant, but I do love making ice cream at home. And I think it's really fun because when you can start controlling the amount of ingredients in something and also the flavors in something, it's like just really fun for me, especially if you have kids or like you're just trying to put together a dinner and you want a particular like flavor or color of ice cream. You can really like create all kinds of stuff. And so I would just encourage you, if you have never made ice cream at home and you have interest in doing it, you should go for it. There are so many cool resources out there about making ice cream at home. And the Breville Smart Scoop machine that I have has a great manual that has all kinds of recipes in it that you can check out. But it's really super fun. Also, it's summer, it's hot, and full transparency, I've had lots of ice creams like be super successful. I've had a lot of like really unsuccessful ice creams as well. And like they kind of like I mean, it's really like the texture that would be unsuccessful because ice cream like kind of tastes great either way. So if you were to make an ice cream and it didn't turn out super great, like you should literally just throw it in the blender with something else and some ice, and like then you have a really cool like shake of some kind. So just encouraging you, if you haven't done it, go for it. Okay, so I chose oat ice cream for this particular recipe because I really love to try to present drinks that can like be super friendly to people that have like preferences or even allergies that are really great on their own, as opposed to like, oh, this is a really great drink with ice cream. And then also if you can't eat dairy, like you can try something else. This particular recipe is really great, like just as it is with the oat. I chose the oat because the oat has like a particular kind of like toasted flavor to it that I think is really great. And yeah, so that's ice. That's the ice cream. Let's talk through the tea component of this drink as well. So this drink has rose tea in it. And so rose is a really specific kind of flavor profile. It is literally exactly what you might smell if you were to smell a rose. So it's like almost got a like kind of a medicinal kind of flavor to it. And I also just want to give a shout out to the strength of rose as a flavor. So rose can get like ultra strong really fast. So the recipe that I've given you is going to yield what is meant to be a concentrated rose tea product. So if you were just wanting to have like a little warm cup of like rose tea, you would be doing something more like 400 grams of water to like 9 grams of tea steeped for like 4 minutes. And that's, I don't think is the exact recipe that we would recommend from Onyx, but I think that's like in the spirit of what kind of recipe you would be looking for. So the recipe that I gave to you all, which is basically it's a 5-minute steep, which is going to be just a little bit longer than I would steep this tea if I was just going to drink a cup of it. But basically, this is like double the amount of tea, half the amount of water. So the thought process there is like, it is going to be serving as a concentrate in the shake. So because I'm going to be adding something to it, I want the rose to stand up in the ice cream flavor so that it doesn't get completely overwhelmed by like the sweetness and again, the fat vehicle that's going to carry it around your mouth. Okay. And I think that kind of recipe can apply like almost across the board if you're wanting to make like either a tea concentrate or even if you're wanting to make a tea that you pour over ice. So you could take the same recipe make it hot and like have a cup of ice and pour it over even when it's still hot. And like, because it is concentrated, that like melting of ice is going to basically input enough water to that beverage so that it's like the right level of concentrate of tea. Great. Okay. So basically, making tea is one of the most straightforward things to do. So I'm basically just going to take the tea in my decanter. Also, let's just be honest about it. Roses are beautiful. Like, this tea is so fun. It like has really great color to it. It literally looks like a rose. I actually use this tea. You can see I have a few like of the little flowers here. I use this tea for all kinds of stuff. So you can make a concentrate with it, which is what we're doing right now. I also use it as a garnish. It's not necessarily something that you would like eat like in your mouth, but like it's a really great, beautiful garnish in the spirit of like edible flowers. It's really great. So you can see we're starting to get a little pink there in the bottom, and it's just beautiful when it blooms. So I'm going to set this aside. I wanted to show you that. I did make a little bit of it before we kind of jumped on here today so that we wouldn't have to wait the whole time for it to steep, but I wanted to like just show you how it works. You can see it's getting to have a really beautiful color there in the bottom. Okay, so let's now jump into the shake. So, and let's talk through again, balance. So I don't want to like feel like I'm always talking about balance, but I feel like that the things that make the greatest beverages are things that like contain a thought process on like, how are we going to make this all work together? How is it going to be harmonious? How is it going to showcase flavors without those flavors being super dominant? And I think anytime you're making anything with rose, that this is something to keep in mind. So the rose flavor is really dominant in beverages. So I've made some beverages in barista competitions that like literally have like 1 drop of rose water in them. And that's just because like it is like perfumey on the nose, and it is like really strong in your mouth. So a little bit of it goes a long way. So just keep that in mind. And with that in mind, I also have added a couple of things to this recipe just because I want it to both like look really incredible. I want it to look like this vibrant kind of pink, beautiful color in the spirit of the like rose tea itself. So you can see the color that this is. It's really pretty. And unfortunately, sad day, this color is not strong enough to go into that oat ice cream and make it still pink. So it's like, it'll be like kind of pink, but like to really get a beautiful, vibrant pink color in a drink, you got to add something that's like really specifically kind of like concentrated to color things and to like pig. So I brought along my trusty beetroot powder. So this particular product is literally exactly what it sounds. It's beet and it's a butter. I know that blew everyone's mind, but there are a lot of like different kinds of little powders like this out there. There is like a strawberry powder. There's this one. There's a dragon fruit powder. There's like basically like these kinds of products that are like run the gamut of colors, flavors, and they are made and they are like natural ingredients. So I'm never a fan of like dropping some food coloring into something because I feel like although food coloring does the job that it should do, I just feel like for me, like I really want to try to have ingredients in my drinks that are natural, that I like feel good about, you know, stuff like that. So basically I'm also going to add a little bit of beetroot powder just to bump up the color. And then at the same time, I am also going to add a little bit of sweetness in the form of vanilla syrup. So I know the recipe you have just has me putting the tea and the sorbet together. And I am, of course, going to also do that. But I'm just going to add a little bit of things to this drink. The sweetness will serve as a balancing factor to tie together the oat sorbet, or the oat ice cream, excuse me, and the tea. So although the oat sorbet does have a bunch of sugar in it, it's not actually ultra sweet. Which I know that seems funny, but the vanilla flavor, the vanilla syrup is going to add a little bit of vanilla flavor, but also a sweetness to kind of tie the two together, because the rose tea is really strong and it's got like a really strong, almost like medicinal flavor going on in it. And I'm saying medicinal is not a negative to me. It mainly is just like, feels like an accurate description of the tea concentrate itself. Woo! Y'all, it was a long explanation. Okay, let's make it, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the oats and oat ice cream in. And I've just got everything pre-measured out just so that I can just toss everything in there. So when you are working through a shake recipe, I'm gonna go ahead and pour the tea in. And again, this is tea that I had already made a little bit earlier. When you're working through a shake recipe, you're gonna wanna think about the level of liquid versus the level of ice cream that you put in here. So I've got 250 grams of ice cream in here, and we do weigh it out just because different ice creams have different kinds of densities in them. And so you just want to make sure that if you're traveling across different recipes, or maybe you want to make the drink every single time, but with a different ice cream, and even thinking about doing something like add 3 scoops. It's cool, but what size scoops? Are the scoops the same density of ice cream? Especially when ice cream gets really cold, it's kind of hard to get out. So in this way, it just helps us make a common kind of course, language of weighing something in grams, but it just gives consistency across the board. So usually when I'm making a shake like this, I use this amount of ice cream, and then I use between 4 to 6 ounces of liquid. So I'm using 4 ounces of tea here. I'm going to go ahead and put the beetroot powder in, and I'm going to use, this is like a 1/4 teaspoon of the beetroot powder. And if you have ever used beetroot powder before, or you have ever heard me talk about it, it's the more you use, the more vibrant the color, but also the more beety it gets, which is a great term because if you like beets, it's kind of got this earthy, also earthiness, but also it has a lot of sweetness to it. So it's like a carrot. Carrots have tons of sugar in them, and beets also have tons of sugar in them, but it also has that earthy vibe going on to it. So if you start using it and you're man, I want this drink to be pink, it's go for it. But also just remember, the more you use, the more beet-y your drink's gonna be. Okay, and so then I'm just gonna add an ounce of vanilla syrup. So an ounce of a vanilla syrup is a very super standard kind of recipe for sweetening drinks. Okay. This is a really nerve-wracking time for me as well. It's just like the shaking. I feel that with blenders, things can be totally awesome or totally crazy. So we're just gonna go for it. Oh yeah. That was so anticlimactic. I don't know why I get so nervous about it, but I'm just always afraid something is going to go wrong and it's going to be super crazy. So I really didn't blend it for that long. I think it was about 20 seconds. And the reason for that is just I just don't want it to get super purified, because I still want it to have a lot of body going on to it. I want it to have a lot of heaviness. I mean, I want it to be blended enough for it to pour, but I don't want it to be like so liquidy that once you take it and start drinking it, it's like just you can drink it straight down. I really like to try to account for like the fact that most people take time to drink shakes. So like it'll melt a little bit as you go along and it gets a little warmer and the ice crystals in the ice cream start to melt. Okay. And then the other part of this is that I am going to put a little bit of granola in the top of this because I feel like it adds both to like the visual appeal of the drink and it adds a little bit of texture into the drink as well. So kind of like my pouring method here is going to be, I'm basically just going to pour it about 3/4 of the way up. And I'm going to like be tilting it to the side because what I want to do is kind of like create some room in the top of the glass because I'm going to pour the oats onto the like in on an angle like this and then turn the drink up. And my kind of like what my hope is that the oats come down a little bit to create more of a diagonal on the pour of the oats than not. And the thought process on that is just literally visual. It's like I just want it to look like I intentionally poured it in there and not like I just dumped it in the top, which honestly that maybe is gonna be what it's look like. I can't talk because I'm nervous because I want it to work really well. Okay. Someone said to me today, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I'm still trying to unravel that statement because I feel like it is opposite of what I would think it would be. But in this scenario, I'm going to also just ascribe to slow, smooth, and then hopefully smooth is beautiful. How about that? We'll change it like that. Does anyone know what that actual saying is? If you do, please put it in the chat. Okay, so take a look at the drink now. And you can see I still got it on the side because what I kind of want to do is like, I'm going to like put a macaron in the top of this. And what I want to do is kind of like push this down on the side and just create like a double top on it. So the macaron literally is cute. It's fun. And it's just literally like stuck right here in the top of the drink. And then I'm going to garnish it with the straw. And that's it. It's so cute. And it's so good. I really hope that some of y'all are making this at home with me. Perfect. Okay. Okay, someone is asking me about corn syrup substitution. So this is, let me just take a look down through here. So here's the deal with the corn syrup. Because I also feel I have all kinds of feelings about corn syrup just as a whole. So you can get like a lighter style high fructose corn syrup. But part of the thing that you have to do when you're using oat milk in an ice cream instead of like heavy cream is you have to get fat into it. So that is the whole purpose of like the corn syrup in this recipe is to like add that texture that the oat is lacking. So there absolutely are other substitutions. So there are like alternative ingredients for corn syrup. And I actually can't think of what the names of them are off the top of my head, but there are other syrups that are in that spirit. I would say also, I feel like I have used honey instead of the high fructose corn syrup. There are also other kinds of recipes out there that use things like a starch, like a potato starch or like a corn starch that like kind of add that heavy thickness to it. But you have to do something to compensate for the fat because it's really like the fat and that kind of like heavy like that heavy syrupy sweetness that makes the ice cream have its texture. So when you start playing with these kinds of recipes, like in order to get the texture that actually feels and tastes and like has the correct texture of ice cream, you have to like start adding these sorts of things to it. So I totally feel you because I'm not a huge fan of corn syrup. But in this recipe, it works really great. It's a good question though for asking. Are there any other questions for me about either one of these drinks? I would totally love to answer them. So let's just review like the 2 drinks for the day. We've got the Thai iced coffee and the rose oat shake. Both of these drinks are really great, really perfect for summertime. So, you know, I think that as you approach summer and you're thinking about having guests over to your house for dinner, or if you're going to sit by the pool somewhere, both of these drinks are really great companions for you to take along. And both of them can like meet all different kinds of flavor profiles. Amazing. Okay, perfect. Oh, got another question. Any recommendations for the best oat milk brands in making a smooth oat sorbet? Great question. So the oat milk game is like ultra crowded, which I think is really fun. I was telling somebody this the other day, but when I first started in coffee, like almost 100 years ago, the only alternative like plant-based beverage that we had at the time was soy milk. And it was a specific kind of soy milk. There was like maybe 1 or 2 brands out there, and it was definitely like not made for coffee. And it like just had this real specific kind of aftertaste that happened to it when you steamed it. And it was just kind of like not, it was definitely like, oh shoot, you can't drink milk. Okay, we have soy. And I just love how crowded the market for alternative plant-based beverages are right now, because there's so many really cool options out there and you can like get them anywhere. So it's like, I usually try to go to like a local, you know, like we have a local co-op here. I also like go to places like Whole Foods, and those places have like so many alternatives. But then like, you know, I go to Walmart or I go to like Harps, which is our local grocery store. There's like multiple options of alternative plant-based. And there's usually like not just multiple brands, but like multiple brands of oat or multiple brands of almond or whatever. So I just like gave you a really long explanation, but there's a couple of like oat products that I really like. So the Barista Series oat from Pacific Foods is my favorite one. So I really love it. Barista Series from Pacific does a really great job of creating a alternative plant-based that is like made to be steamed, which is super cool. But it also works well in this kind of ice cream recipe. And the other thing about it that I think is great, which is kind of ironic given the fact that this ice cream recipe has like 3 cups of sugar in it, is that Pacific Barista Series products tend to have really low amounts of sugar in them. So a lot of times the thing that is super tricky to watch out for in those plant-based alternatives is that a lot of them have a lot of added sweetness. And some of that is about like making it taste great. Some of it is about like how it's formulated to perform, because a lot of people take those options and they want to use it like it is milk. And the fat content and the protein content is just a lot. The whole protein structure is completely different than like a milk, like a dairy milk, obviously. So a lot of times that sugar is added to like help create more of like a texture and a more performance like you would expect from milk. So it's just interesting. It has like added sweetness. But the Barista Series oat from Pacific is my favorite. But there's also other brands out there that I think are doing a great job and also are like formulated for coffee as well. There is like a new plant-based milk that I've been kind of playing with a little bit called Tash. It's like a pistachio. It's made from pistachios and it is like really good. Super great. I'm kind of really into that right now. I'm just like getting familiar with it myself, but it's beautiful. It tastes great. It's like really cool. So that would be a fun one to make an ice cream with as well. So Someone is asking me if I made my own bitters, and I'm just going to be honest, I did not. So I think I've actually never tried to make bitters. I have like observed other people making them and like have worked with like bartenders that make their own bitters, and I think it's super cool. For me, like these are like the Scrappy's brand, and that they do like a really great job. And I think for purposes of what I traditionally do, I just usually use those like really nice products that are already out there. But I should. It's a great question. Maybe I'll try to do that soon. Thank you for asking. Yeah. Are there any other questions from anybody? Thank you all so much for joining us today. So this was super fun. This is like the last class in this like season that we're doing. Fun news is that Crate and Barrel and Breville are once again coming together to make this content series continue to go forward. I really appreciate them like being excited about utilizing coffee as an ingredient and like showcasing all the really great things that coffee can be. So we'll be doing another season forthcoming this fall, which I'm super excited about. And I've already made quite a few drinks for it. One of them is like a green latte that features the pistachio milk, and it is super cool. There is like a drink that has like pumpkin cream on the top and is smoked with the Breville smoking gun and the cloche, and it is like the coolest thing. I've already like made some of that content, and it is so cool. I can't wait to show it to you. There's a pistachio ice cream affogato that will be coming out in that series. So I'm super excited about that. So anyways, this has been so much fun. I love doing this. Again, shout out to Crate and Barrel, Breville, and Onyx Coffee Lab for making this series possible. If you make these drinks at any time, I would love for you to tag all of us on social media, because I'd love to see what your drinks look like and what your experiences are with them. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the fall.